Would you like to be wiser? Would you like the ability to make decisions that you had confidence in? Then you need a dose of wisdom, and the book of Proverbs is where you're going to find it. Let's have a look. Shortly after I gave my life to Christ, it was suggested to me that I begin to read a chapter of Proverbs every day. There's 31 chapters in Proverbs, and that sort of coincides with the days of the month. I did that. In fact, I did that for years and years and years, and I'm still a frequent visitor to the book of Proverbs. And one of the reasons why I was so keen to do that was because when we read the book of Proverbs, it promises to help us to become wiser. That was something that I actually craved. I craved a wisdom that I knew I didn't have. So, as we now dig a little bit deeper into the exilic literature of the Bible, we're now going deeper into the wisdom literature. And of course, for most people, the most common book they would think of when it comes to the Bible's wisdom literature would be the book of Proverbs. Proverbs originated out of the exile. And again, to remind you, the exilic literature largely came about because the elders of Israel, those who had been taken into exile, those who had seen the temple, those who had seen the fall of Jerusalem, those who had seen the prophets pleading with the people to return to the covenant that they'd kept, Jeremiah and so on. Now, as the exile was coming to an end, and the decree was that the Jews could now return if they chose to, or they could leave Assyria and go wherever they wanted. And so the concern was that many of these young Jewish men in particular would migrate to the happening city. That would be Alexandria in northern Egypt. And so the book of Proverbs is one of those books that actually, if you can see it, actually narrates the story of two young men going off to a large city. We see in the opening verses, and let me read the opening verses to you because this is what I think promises to be the richness, the treasure that can be found in the book of Proverbs. It starts off by saying the Proverbs of Solomon, son of David, king of Israel. But as we go through the book of Proverbs, we will see that there are other contributors. In fact, we see that it says that the men of King Hezekiah compiled and composited some of the Proverbs of Solomon. We also see that there's two other characters in the closing two chapters of the book of Proverbs that also contribute to this book. So we have clearly, by its own admission, a composition of proverbial wisdom. But nevertheless, we'll come to this point that it's given the patronage of Solomon, son of David, king of Israel. Here's the purpose of the book, verse 2, to know wisdom and instruction, to understand words of insight, to receive instruction in wise dealing, in righteousness, justice, and equity, to give prudence to the simple, knowledge and discretion to the youth. Let the wise hear and increase in learning, and the one who understands obtain guidance. To understand a proverb and a saying, the words of the wise and their riddles. So here we have a very eloquent introduction. If you're wise, you will want to increase in wisdom. If you are wise, you will want to be someone who can be taught, who can learn. Then chapter 1 will very quickly get into essentially what is a thread that runs through the entire 31 chapters of Proverbs. And this thread goes like this. There will be two paths. There will be the path of the wise son who heeds his father's instruction. And this will be something that occurs very often in the first 10 chapters of Proverbs. And the first 10 chapters are essentially a father speaking to his son about to send him into the city. Then we will see that there is another thread, another storyline running through, and that is the foolish son. The foolish son who does not heed his father's instruction, who does not listen to his mother, and he's going into the city. And then we find two warnings. Well, firstly, the warning is, do not ignore the lady that I have arranged for you to meet. So here we have, you can imagine, in this ancient era, the father is sending his son into the city, away from home and all the things that are familiar to him, to find a bride. And this father, the father of the wise son, wants his son to find a particular lady. And she is going to be identified as Lady Wisdom. On the other hand, the foolish son is going to ignore Lady Wisdom, even though she will be calling out to him. And he will go after woman folly. Then as we get toward the end of the book of Proverbs, we will see that the foolish son has a headache, he's blown his money, he's drunk, as in he's got a hangover from his foolish, riotous living. He's gone after women who were committing adultery, and now he is reaping great pain because of his foolishness. This is contrasted with the wise son, who heeds his father's instruction and embraces Lady Wisdom. To her, the father has promised his son, will be riches and honor. And that was a big deal in the ancient world. The closing two chapters of the book of Proverbs has the account of the foolish son, and then chapter 31 closes with the account of the wise son who has found Lady Wisdom, and as a result, wisdom is personified as a woman, and she is described as someone who will be of great service to the wise son. She will prosper him, honor and riches. She will give him a name, a reputation, and he will be known for his wisdom because of her. Now, I'd just like to point out that many people have not seen this. They've read the book of Proverbs and not picked up, firstly, the occasion, why this has been written in the first place, and this narrative that runs quietly through the 31 chapters. As a result, those people will get to chapter 31 and they will see that chapter 31 is describing the perfect woman, the perfect wife. And this, I have found as a pastor, has brought many, many women under great condemnation, because no woman can measure up to the wisdom that comes from God. So even though wisdom is personified as a woman and as a creation of God, it's poetic language, because what we see in the New Testament, that Christ is the embodiment of the wisdom of God. He is the wisdom of God. So here we have in the book of Proverbs principles for life. Fear God. Be teachable. Learn from your mistakes. Don't make decisions on the basis of the lack of counsel. In fact, what you'll do as you go through the book of Proverbs, if you take a pen or a pencil, I encourage you to take highlighters through any book of the Bible, but particularly the book of Proverbs, you will find, and I challenge you to find this, about 12 principles for finding wisdom. And one of them includes learning from your mistakes. Some people, when they have a big decision to make, they are looking for God to speak to them directly. I'm not criticizing that, but I am suggesting that as we read the book of Proverbs, I think it's fair to say that those people who are looking for a direct word from God, they want to hear God, and good on you. But as we read through the book of Proverbs, what we find is the book of Proverbs is not encouraging us to learn how to hear God, in as much as the book of Proverbs is encouraging us to receive God's wisdom. So when you have a decision to make, it's not necessarily a direct word from God that you need, it's wisdom. And in the book of Proverbs, you will find that it talks about preparing things in advance for something you want down the track. It talks about learning now for what you will need to know in the future. It talks about picking your friends well, because life is not always about what you know, it's about who you know. And so all of these principles that we find in the book of Proverbs will help a person to make decisions in a far wiser way. So I encourage you, have a look at the book of Proverbs. 31 chapters. If you haven't taken to the habit of reading one chapter a day corresponding to the day of the month, then I encourage you, do it for a few months. Do it prayerfully and see how you pick up insight that will help you to make better decisions. We're going to continue through the last few books that are part of wisdom literature. I hope you can join with me. In the meantime, would you please give this a thumbs up? Hit the notification bell if you haven't already done so. And if you're not yet a subscriber to this channel, please subscribe. And if you know someone who might benefit from digging deeper into God's Word, would you please tell them about these videos? And you'll see me in our next installment, digging deeper into the Bible's exilic literature.